Yeah, I'm born and bred from North Carolina, grew up in Durham, moved around a little bit, but always came back home. My background's in engineering. I did gas turbine design and manufacturing, global supply chain management for about a decade. And then in parallel, also got into real estate because we had our first kid and a lot of people were getting fired and we didn't know what we were going to do if we all got fired. So we started in single family, did all the work ourselves, kind of grew from there, doing about a property here. And at one point, we finally realized we could buy commercial property. This was mind blowing at the time because we'd never heard of this. So, bought a 6 unit in Dallas, North Carolina, not Texas. That one we still have, love it there. And it's continuing to grow. It's actually got a development going up behind it now, which is exciting to see. So we've got since then kind of grew into syndications. That was about COVID time, so I got super lucky and everybody went online and all these meetups that were happening in person were now available to people, anybody who wanted to join them. And so I learned a ton attending meetups like this one, all about syndications. Everybody's really open. It was really fun to learn a whole new industry while working full time and raising kids. So yeah, it's been quite a journey. I've got about 100 or about almost 200 doors now. I've got another one under contract to close next month. That's 29 doors, and yeah, we're still a lot of some of those are syndications. Some of them are my own. It's been this next one's going to be more of a joint venture style, so it's definitely the structure kind of depends on how the deal works and which partners work at that any given time. But I think the exciting thing about that we're going to talk about today is last year I had kind of a rough year. I had a fire on one property and a major flood on another one from Hurricane Helene, and we're working on rebuilding both of those. So excited to talk about those in more detail and answer any questions you guys have.
Yeah, thank you. I just looked. Dallas is north of Gastonia. I think most of us know the Gastonia area outside of Charlotte, right?
Yep. Yeah, it's just north of Gastonia. It's growing quite quickly, actually. I like that little area. There's a lot of single families going up there, but there's almost no apartments, which makes it ideal for from a supply standpoint. Versus and like Gastonia in general has a little bit less supply issues than Charlotte, which is an insane amount of supply right now.
Yeah, so again, guys, it's pretty informal, so just jump in. When we connected, we kind of talked about topics. I love when you threw out the just keep swimming. Just I think it's a great
Yeah.
for us. So I kind of, I guess let you, lead off with that mindset and tell us a little, bit about last year and some of the situations you had to deal with.
Yeah, so last year started off with a bang. I have a property, a 29 unit apartment complex in Columbia, South Carolina. I bought it in June of 2024. No, 2023. Yeah, 2023. Sorry, it's getting confusing. So 2023, we bought it. I had a third party property manager on it. I ended up not liking them. I couldn't find anybody else I like, so I took it over, and that's now self-managed. I took that over on January 1st of 2024, and on January 21st of 2024, four or eight of our units caught on fire and burned to the ground. So about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, my contractor called me and said the building's on fire. Um, and I turned on the camera and see this. Can you
Oh,
guys see
Ouch.
my screen?
Yep.
Yeah. So this is luckily the
Oh my
end
God.
section of a building. Um, so that was 2:15. And then uh, at 2:25, it looked like this. Oh, it was a very fast burning fire. And then at 4:11, they finally put it out. So about 2 hours later, the whole thing is just done.
How many
Um,
units went down?
8 units. Yeah.
Oh,
So the fun part of this is I normally pick my kids up at 2:20 in the afternoon. And so I'm in Charlotte trying to figure out trying to figure out what to do because this is my first major disaster. Trying to figure out how to get my kids taken care of because I know I got to get down there to take care of this because we're now the property managers, right? Like there's no one else to call to take care of any of this. And my husband's out of town for work, so I can't even say, "Hey, can you watch the kids for like 30 minutes?" So it was an exciting day, and I ended up not sleeping that night because we had the fire department there. We're trying to get the water shut off because this property is all in 1 meter, And so the water was just pouring out the back until we get, and that it blew the backflow out the front of the property. But
Was that property
anyway,
recently
so
renovated before the fire?
some of it was, we were in the process of doing a value add renovation on it. And we just, like I'd say about half of these units had already been renovated and the other half still needed to be renovated. So that hurt quite a lot.
So the whole top floor is gone, right? Was that part? It wasn't
Whole
full.
everything's destroyed. Yeah. So let me pull up.
So I
So
guess
I had those pictures just like pulled up and ready to go. But this is what it looks like now. But I can back up. So we had to go all the way down to the foundation. Nothing was salvageable.
So
So
before foundation, how did you deal with tenants? You've been a property manager, self-managed,
the tenants were tough. I mean, they had to leave. Red
of
Cross
course.
came out and is supported, gave them hotel vouchers. We hooked them up with their renter's insurance, made sure that they contacted that. There was one person who didn't have renter's insurance, even though they were supposed to have it. And we've since changed the processes to like check on that. Like we know exactly when their renter's insurance is up now and make sure that they renew it. But at the time she didn't have it. And so we tried to help her best we could, but ultimately we don't have the money to put people up in a hotel. So she went to the Red Cross. There were people that gave donations. It was all over the news. Like you can look this thing up on YouTube. Like the news had a whole field day out of it. One of the lessons that somebody had told me, and I'm very glad they did, was I was never the primary contact person for anyone other than like official like firefighters or policemen. So anyone else who asked about the property, I gave them my assistant's number, and I was not the owner to anyone else other than the people I absolutely had to be. And that filtered out a lot of the adjusters that come around, a lot of the people that chase this to get like big claims and big money, because they're trying to get you when you're stressed out and sign a contract into something that you are going to regret. So there's always, it feels crazy at the time, but other than making sure everybody is safe, there's time for everything else. Like you do not have to rush for anything else other than making sure everybody is safe.
so how many units again was this?
So the whole complex is 29 units. The 8 units burned down. There were 4 more that were damaged by the firefighters because they were breaking through the walls, and the doors, trying to make sure that the firewall was secure. And then the other units were all still livable. So we moved, like people slept there that night. They didn't have any water. There were people with buckets at the gutters, like trying to get water so they could flush their toilets. But yeah, we maintained tenants that whole time, and we still do. We're actually, all 21 of those units are 100% occupied right now. So we were able to continue operating all 21 of those units while we're rebuilding these 8, which is certainly
I have a question.
helpful. Yeah.
So renter's insurance, I always thought was mostly for like, property inside your unit. It also does cover them for relocating for like fires?
It does. Yep, it
Right.
does. Not for like forever, but it will. Yeah. And I can talk about some more about, but with the flooded property, it was the same thing where if somebody had flood insurance, you have to buy a separate coverage for flood insurance on your renter's insurance, but they can, and that will cover them. If they don't, then FEMA ended up covering the other people that didn't have that. And FEMA actually covered one person in a hotel for almost 6 months who just moved back in. Like they covered it for a really long time. So there is definitely that kind of coverage, but it's something where like a lot of the limited liability insurance that Folio pushes and on the other ones are like, hey, you need at least this minimum $100,000 coverage. That does not cover the tenants at all. That covers you. And that's good for you. But if something like this happens, the tenants get nothing. So we always tell them is like, yes, this is your option, but we really, really, really recommend that you go get State Farm, get some other renter's insurance, because it will be cost about the same, to be honest, and it will actually cover your stuff and you in case something happens.
So this was during the day on a weekday, so that's part of why no injuries or anything like that.
Yeah, it was. And my contractor was also on site. So he went around and banged on everybody's door, made sure everybody was out. Like we got lucky that it happened like when most people were gone, and they still busted in every door, all 29 units had to be vacant. During like while the firefighters were figuring out if the rest of the building was going to catch on fire or not. So that was exciting. I got down there probably around 5:30 or so finally. And then like everybody's standing around the parking lot. The firefighters have put the fire out, but they're like starting to sift through things. And yeah, it was interesting to come into that situation and be like, everyone's looking to you for answers and you have no idea what's going on, but the best you can do is just say, all right, everybody's safe. Red Cross wanted a list of like who was impacted. So you had to show them the leases. Like I had to pull everything up. It's really like being organized always helps, right? Because you can
Right.
always pull things up quickly. Yeah, it was definitely it was chaotic.
When you first said that story, like that you were picking up a kid, like it made me think of like, so during this time, like, did you have someone to call and ask some questions? Like, like you were able to speak to someone and get some support as you were on your way?
I mean, I didn't know exactly who I was going to call, but I knew a couple people that I put out to a couple groups really that I put out and said, hey, this just happened. Who should I talk to? And that's the ideal time to like know that you can reach out to a network and be like, hey, this chaos is going. Somebody give me a good person to talk to. And I was hooked up with 3 different people that really like I was able to call them. It's an hour and a half drive down. So I'm like constantly on the phone talking to people, getting coached,
Right.
talking through what to look for and what not to do, and then being told, just call us later after you know more. But definitely don't talk to the press. Definitely don't talk to anybody other than like the official policemen and firefighters and make sure everybody's okay and that you're documenting everything. Take pictures of everything the whole way through because you never know what you're going to need. Um, but yeah, after that point, after the first chaos, it's been a fun rebuild project though. So I'm
How
kind of
did you
flipping
find this
through my
insurance?
album. Hmm?
Were you able to recover everything from insurance? How was the process with insurance?
So far, it's been pretty smooth. We had auto owners on it at the time. They've, of course, dropped us because of the large claim, which is what insurance companies do. So we have different insurance now, but at the time, we had auto owners, and honestly, they've been pretty great to deal with. I
What
will
was it? What
say,
was the
I
name of
don't
it?
auto owners.
Auto owners. Okay, I don't know.
Hmm.
Very cool.
Yeah,
And
I enjoyed working with them so far. Yeah.
so they covered the claim and then they dropped it because it's already too much.
Yeah, they're covering the claim. The claim's still ongoing because it's not rebuilt yet. So even though like they gave us an initial chunk early on, and then we have the biggest extra chunk is the depreciation piece, which they hold back until the rebuild is done. But as we go through the rebuild, we get different. We say, okay, we thought it was this way at the beginning, but we had to cover code, right? So the code coverage that's in your like if we had to upgrade. So we have to upgrade this to sprinklered. We have to upgrade it to ADA compliant, which it wasn't
Oh, wow.
before. So we have to upgrade the building just to rebuild it. And that has a coverage and a coverage limit, but we don't get that money until it's actually done. So then like we submit to auto owners and say, hey, we finished this, and they'll reimburse us versus paying us up front for some of that stuff.
What was the cause of the fire?
HVAC unit.
Was
I
it an
don't
old
exactly know what
unit?
about it, but it started in the HVAC unit. So we've had it since then. That was the first thing we did is we put the HVAC maintenance tech and had them go through every other remaining unit, make sure there was no maintenance issue. We didn't know there was a maintenance issue there, but just on the off chance there was something else, we had them go through all the other ones too.
And for us, when you say we, how do you work? Who's your partners and what's your team?
So I own this one, which is both good and bad in this particular situation. It means that all of those risk is on me, but I also don't have a bunch of people I have to go talk to. But I also have an assistant out in the Philippines who helps me out as on the property management side primarily, but she's been very, very helpful with organizing tenants, communicating and getting maintenance people out there. I also have a contractor that I've been working with for about 6 months before to do the value add, and that he was helping me get these other 21 units back up and running, especially the 4 that got damaged but weren't down units that we could get back up and running. He helped me get those back up.
You mentioned how important organization was in this.
Yeah, yeah.
I guess, with this property or even the other, I know you had other one. What are some of the systems or processes that were, looking back, a big help?
I am a big believer in Google Drive. I know a lot of people like Microsoft and OneDrive, but that there are a lot of people that cannot access that software. And it is really easy to send a firefighter a Google Drive link because almost everybody has access to that stuff and say, because they wanted like the training, they wanted the video. I have a whole video of the fire, right? Because I just hit record on my screen and they wanted it as a training video, for example. So I could just send them the link. The same with like any other documents that I need to send to anybody. I could just pull them up quickly on my phone and drop a link. Whereas I find OneDrive to be, it should, every time I try to use it, and I do have Microsoft 365 because I'm an engineer and Excel is 100% like necessary. Google Sheets is okay, but it's just not the same. So I have both. I'm familiar with both. But that was one of them. The other one is we use AppFolio, so a professional software for property management. It's really easy when you're small to get used to using simple systems, like using Excel, using Word, using just notes and stuff. But AppFolio enabled me to like print off a full rent roll very quickly. I could get all of the leases very quickly. I could get all of the renter's insurance very quickly. I could know exactly all of that stuff I could pull in like 15 minutes and give to the people that needed it at the time. So that was really helpful to have. So while I don't have a whole lot of units technically, like compared to like AppFolio typically says serve 75 plus units. I'm doing like 40 units. And so that does come with a additional cost, but for me, it's worth it because I'm trying to set the stage for, like, I have the systems in place that I know are going to work as I continue to grow versus the ones I was using when it was just 5 or 6 units that I was managing. They couldn't have handled that kind of situation nearly as easily.
That's a good
I don't
point.
know. Let's see. The fun part about this is I get to rebuild it and not just rebuild it, but redesign it. So when we did the floor plans, I actually I'm turning, these were all 900 square foot, 2-bed, 1-bath apartments. Now they're going to be 900 square foot. One of them, 2 of them are going to be a little bit bigger because we took over a hallway, but 3 bedrooms or a 2-bed with an office when we couldn't get a window. And so even though this wasn't it was initially like, do we actually want to rebuild this or do we just want to take the money and run? Like that was definitely one of the early conversations because you have to do the pros and cons of you're going to have to rebuild this. You don't exactly know what it's going to take at the beginning. And is it worth the risk versus just, all right, I've still got 21 units. Do I just manage the 21 units and leave the foundation over here all by like clean it up and then just kind of forget about it. But with the ability, like for me, especially because I was able to turn the floor plans from 2 bedrooms into 3 bedrooms, that's a couple $100 a month rent bump in Columbia. And that's a big boost. And I already knew what I could get for the other 21 units because I'd already done all the market research. So essentially, like right now, the property's running like 21 units. We're breaking even. As soon as those other 8 units come online, we're not going to have that much R&M, like repairs and maintenance is going to be really low on them. Like we're not going to have a whole lot of cost and we're going to get significantly higher rent on all 8 of those. So we should be a really, really high cash flowing property at the end of this, like early spring next year. But right now it's like, we're breaking even. Like it's good. We're okay, but it's definitely not. I'd feel a lot better once we get those units back online.
And I'm sure your engineering, you got to come out and get all excited, right?
Oh, I do. Yeah, I went and walked it this morning. It's a lot of, especially like walking the floor plans. And you're like, oh, this actually because you feel it, right? Like you put it on paper and you think it's going to be one way, but until it's actually going up, you don't know for sure. So it's exciting.
Now, is that
But yeah, that's what.
area we're looking at?
Sorry.
Is that like a basement area we're looking at?
Yes. So there's also a basement underneath it. Let me back up to one of these other pictures. So this is a good view. So this is first floor, second floor, basement area.
What do you use that for?
Well, when I first bought it, it was a big empty room with a bunch of graffiti on the inside and a laundry room that had sewer backup 2 years before, and then the door was shut on it. So that's what it was. I think originally it was a pool house. There used to be a pool over here on the right that's since been filled in, so there's no pool anymore. But now we've talked about making it into a unit, but the expense of doing that wasn't really worth it right now. We wanted, like, there's just so much other costs going into this, and insurance clearly wasn't going to cover an additional unit. That wasn't something that would be in the scope of the rebuild because they'll only pay for building back what got taken. So instead, what we're going to do is we're turning it into a laundry.
Could you rent out the space as like public storage kind of stuff?
Yeah, so that's what we're going to do. So we've got, so this side, like the side I'm standing in now, is going to be the wireframe cages that get rented out for storage to the tenants. This middle section and this back section are going to be for maintenance. So this is going to be our material storage. There's a sink, a 220-volt outlet, and a couple other things back here for the maintenance going forward. So we have like a little work area. And then this corner is the laundry room. So there's 2 washers, 2 dryers set up. And then there's an exterior door the tenants can access. So then that gives us the goal was to keep the space pretty open so that if in the future we want to put a unit in there, we have that capability. But we didn't want to, I still want to make the space make more money, right? Like it's per square foot is king. And this is a huge, huge space to leave without getting any money for it. Good question. Yeah. And that's our sprinkler room because now we have to have one. I think that's probably, I don't know. I can move on to the flood, or we can go anywhere else you guys want to
So
go.
in the end of the day, you have to come up with some money to finish the renovation, or they cover everything?
No, we're budgeting so that they'll cover everything.
They
So that's
cover everything.
why, yeah. So that's why like there's certain things that I'm not doing, like adding the unit, a couple other things where we've talked through it. It's like, all right, insurance will cover this, they won't cover that. So I'm only doing what insurance is going to cover. And so that was the argument, like with they only build back with what got torn down. So we had to make the case that the 3-bedroom layouts that we were putting back in there were the same cost as the 2-bedroom layout. So we actually have to run side by side cost analysis to say, this is how much the 2-bed would cost. This is how much the 3-bed would cost. And we have to change it anyway because it has to be ADA compliant and have sprinklers and other things in it now. So we would have to change the layout anyway. So let's just go with this one. And we got them to agree. So that's some
Nice,
of
so
the
they agreed
fun
on that.
negotiations.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
You're out of pocket until you are reimbursed.
No, I don't have that kind of money.
Oh, okay. Okay.
No, so insurance gave me a big chunk of it, like a month and a half after it happened. So like over $1 million they sent us after it happened. And then as we did more stuff, did more analysis, found out more, they were sending additional chunks or reimbursing depending on the specific scenario.
Did your budget increase? Have you like renegotiated, keep coming back and saying, no, it's gonna get more? So what was your initial budget and how much did it increase from?
So we thought the initial rebuild was going to be about 1.6, and that included demo and everything. One of the increases was the demo was significantly more expensive because drywall has asbestos in it and it tested positive for asbestos.
Oh.
And so then we had to demo with asbestos remediation. So instead of, I don't know, $50,000, it was like $200,000 to demo the thing. And so we had to be like, insurance, you get to cover this. And they did. The sprinklers were another one that we had to prove to them that it was required by local code and that local code was actually going to check for it. Like it wasn't just that it was in the code book. They needed a letter from the city stating that the city was not going to approve this unless we did ADA, because we have to add a ramp too. We didn't have a ramp before. So now we are adding concrete. We have to add a parking space, which has been sorry, hold on. Let me back up to the picture.
This is awesome. So you went all compliant and all, all very, this is great actually.
So we're going to get a ramp in here so that you can a wheelchair access can happen here. But this parking lot, you can kind of tell from this view, I wish I had a better view. This is very sloped. So we had no flat parking spots anywhere. So there's no ADA spots at all in this parking lot. So now we're having to raise up, like repave this back area, raise it up with dirt, flatten it out to make one ADA parking spot that is required by the city. And it's costing almost $200,000 to make one parking spot.
Wow.
Will you be required to have an elevator?
No, it doesn't have to have an elevator. We're just Class B. We don't have to be Class A. Yeah.
Okay. So one parking, but there'll be more parking spots, right? It's required only one, but you'll be able to put more parking spots, right?
Well, only required to have one ADA, so one handicap spot.
Yeah.
So the other spots don't have to be flat, just the handicap spot. And the spot next to it has to be flat so the wheelchair won't roll away as they're getting in and out of their car. which all
But it's
makes
nice.
sense, but it's like the angle is pretty steep. And so like we building it up and getting a new curb poured and new, like we had to put a new giant like drain catch in it. It's a lot.
I mean, as long as it pays the bill, why not?
Yeah, exactly. It was a discussion with insurance to be sure. Cause it was this like initially it was a discussion with the city because I thought it was ridiculous. I was trying
So
to find
so
anywhere else to put this
so
parking
you
spot.
so you added sprinklers, you added parking lot, you added the ramp. So how much is the final right now?
Right now, I think we're at 1.9,
Oh,
1.9 or 2 total. And we don't get all that until the end, right? So some of that's estimating what we're going to need.
yep.
But yeah, I think a cap, like there's a cap on it at 2 point, I want to say 2.3, something like that. And so I am working with an adjuster. He's actually an umpire. He's who the adjusters call to do their work, and then they charge you extra for. So he's actually the guy who actually does the work. But he's been fantastic to help me like figure out all the little tricks. So he's helping me make sure that we're negotiating with insurance in their terms so that it's very hard for them to say no because we're presenting it as like, oh yeah, no, we're just following your process.
So this is your private adjuster. How did you find him?
Like I said, I called everybody. So my husband's manager's friend from college, again, network, 6 degrees of separation. But I said I was looking for an adjuster, and he was like, "Oh, you should talk to my friend Will. He's up in Ohio, by the way. He's not local, but flies all over the country, and he is great at this work. Like I'm happy to send you guys his contact information. But he does this all the time for all sorts of commercial buildings.
And how
But
much does it charge? Does it charge a rate, fixed rate, or some percentage?
it's a percentage of the total. Yeah, I don't remember exactly what the percentage is, but I think I'm going to end up paying him somewhere around $60,000 at the end of the day. But
And it
100% worth it.
100%.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, he found like when the insurance adjusters went in, for example, like they didn't count the siding that was inside the hallway as an example, and he caught that. He's helping me negotiate like all the sprinklers and all the extra stuff. Like he's helping be like,
Awesome.
hey, if we have this paperwork, they won't be able to say no. Like this is this like he just knows like what they're going to ask for, what upper management and insurance is going to ask for, and so he can go ahead and like prep the guy at the base level to say, here's all the stuff you need. He even sat with they hired an engineer to assess the foundation, and the engineer was like struggling with how to do it because it's kind of a weird, it's actually like a parking lot T. I don't know if you noticed it from the bottom, but it's not a normal foundation. Like this is like parking lot structure for some reason. And so the engineer was having, so he like sat down with the engineer and was like, here's how I think you should do it. And the engineer was like, oh, that makes sense. And just did it that way. So it's
So
that kind of stuff that
this happened early in the year, right? In
this
early,
happened in January.
uh,
Yeah.
and then and this is great because it's kind of like a perfect like case study that you just walk through of everything, the timeline and some of the costs. Like, and then you had another property with the hurricane. That was when in
Yeah.
September, I think, right? That was
Yep. That was Hurricane Helene.
Oh
So
boy.
this is my other property.
oh Mount Holly. Okay, I remember real.
This is Mount Holly.
Ah,
So if you look in the Gaston Gazette, there's a photo of people kayaking in our parking lot.
Oh wow.
Um, so it went over that whole intersection too, right? Like this is from that Mount Holly intersection for those of you who've driven through Mount
ouch.
Holly. So it was not just our property. It was that whole area that got caught up in it. Um, so yeah, this was about 7 months ago. This was less of an adventure than the fire. I'll say that. Like this was much easier, especially having come after the fire. Like this, I don't know, it didn't stress me out nearly as much. My partner was totally stressed because I do have a partner. This is a syndication, so I do have partners on this one. Um, but everybody had to vacate, of course. Yeah, there's a video. Fun
Well, I
times.
guess, how much did your experience the first time around, I guess, in terms of like communicating and dealing with tenants, help you?
It helped a lot. I mean, the tenants here it was different. All right. So some tenants left immediately. A lot of them just went to the second floor and stayed there. I don't know. They just didn't have anywhere else to go and didn't know what to do. So it helped a good bit because I knew it was like, hey, call the Red Cross, call FEMA. Like, let's get you guys get on your renter's insurance. Let's get you guys out of here. But there were
But you
still
have
people that didn't want to leave. Like
you have
we would
property managers there, right?
We do. Yeah, we do have property managers there, but they hadn't been through anything like this either, to be honest, because we weren't paying the most expensive ones. We were paying the people I had to babysit more because they were cheaper. So yes, they were there. They helped out. They were the first line of defense for all the phone calls and everything, but I was still helping direct behind the scenes. I'd say this one was a little tougher to get people out of because they just been, well, you had like a couple of people that's been there, they've been living there for decades and they didn't even like we'd never renovated their unit because they just paid market rent for an unrenovated unit. And we're like, well, that sounds fine. Okay. So yeah, they would like they do things like we had to turn all the power off, obviously, but Duke only pulled the meters out of the back building. And so then the tenant that wanted to stay would go and flip their breaker back on. We're like, you can't do that. Like all of the wiring's been soaked. Like you can't. And they wanted to stay there while we did the renovations, but we ended up we were like, there's just no way because you've got to do like a 4 foot flood cut.
And how was dealing with insurance on this?
Actually not terrible. It took them a while to get out there. So there's a document you've got to sign at the very beginning that just essentially says, "Hey, I'm making a claim on this." And you need to do that as quickly as possible because essentially that starts your timeline at the insurance company. And if you
And
don't sign it, if you put it off because you're afraid that like you're like, "Oh, well, maybe I don't need," because we were looking at this, we're like, well, maybe we don't need to claim all the buildings, just the ones that were in the back that were really bad, and like the front ones we might be able to like recover and not file a claim on. That was a bad idea because that meant that we didn't get paid until much later because we didn't start the insurance time clock to actually process the claim early enough. So this happened late September, October timeframe, and we didn't get insurance money until January. And so we had to go in there. We went in there and did all the flood cut and everything like the very next week. As soon as we could get in there, we did the remediation. We got all that taken care of as soon as possible. Dumpsters, by the way, are like gold in these situations. Like I had to order dumpsters from 3 different dumpster companies because they just didn't have enough dumpsters at one company that I could get all of this stuff out. Like they just weren't. So they were constantly in and out. We probably spent $8,000 or $10,000 just on dumpster rentals to get all of the junk and all of the furniture and everything that got soaked had to get out of there as quickly as possible so we didn't have any fungal growth issues.
So let me ask you, because here we are now, it's May 2025, like you sound so positive, and then obviously like we
I
talked
like projects.
yeah.
Sorry, that's my twisted sense of humor. This is fun for me. Like as long as no one gets hurt, it's like this is a fun problem to figure out.
so you had a flood insurance there, right? Or was it part
We
of
did.
hurricane? It was an anomaly there for the area, or is it a flood zone?
We had, yeah, it wasn't a flood zone, but it was only supposed to be the very back building. Let me get a aerial real quick.
So no, at no point did you at say, oh my, we've had fire this year, we've had flood, like this real stuff is crazy. You just plug through
No, you
and
just keep going. I
yeah.
You're like,
mean,
here we go again.
yeah, let's just go again. So like I said, the on the rebuild side, there's a lot of crazy stuff. I learned a ton of work. And now I'm learning how to do development. Like it's kind of like a mini development project,
I was
right?
gonna
Like
ask, I was gonna ask.
I don't have to file for entitlements. I don't have to find the land. I don't have to do like everything's in a little box. The foundation's already there. So I just get to do the fun stuff. And it's like, okay, well, now I get to learn what does development look like? How does it to work with the city of Columbia on development? Would I want to do that again? And start making those network connections to potentially do some additional building later. Cause I do want to get into development at some point. I think smaller stuff, but anyway, it's an opportunity to learn, right? So I looked at it as, yes, this is an investment. Could I take the money and run? Maybe, but to me, it's like I was pretty sure the property was going to do better at the end of it after rebuilding. I just needed to get through, like manage through it, and then once I get to the end of it, it's going to end up better than it was. And that's kind of my view on most things. The same with the flood. It sucks this happened. We looked at the property, and if they'd made us rebuild it or something, we would have had like we didn't have to bring Mount Holly up to code, right? Because flood didn't have code coverage. So if we had to bring it up to code, we would not have been able to redo the property. But we were able to update stuff that was already there. So like all of the cast iron sewer pipes in the 1970s building, Those are now all PVC because we had access to the walls. So it's a lot of stuff that you can do. Like, how often do you get to like completely vacate a property, gut it, start from scratch on insurance's dime, right? Like you're not, yeah, it'd be nice to take the money, but then you'd end up with a property nobody wants. So it helps the community. I mean, let me go back for a minute. This is what I meant by the back building. So this is the river. That's why I pulled this up. This is the river. This is the only building that was in the floodplain, but we were required to get flood insurance on all 5 buildings. So that was lucky we did. So then we had 500K of coverage per building. That flood paid out once they were like, yeah, it flooded. It's very hard to say it didn't flood or there wasn't a fire. It's hard for insurance to argue that. So they paid out pretty quickly, but in this case, they paid our bank, not us. And so we had to make a draw. We had to work with the bank to take draws out of the bank as work was completed.
Okay.
Now, do any
Just
of
something
your
to be aware
properties
of.
that you own have enough land that now you would consider putting additional buildings on?
Yes, funny you should ask that, Ted. Did we talk about that before?
No. I'm just,
No? Okay.
you sound excited about building. You have a lot of experience now. And if you have a property that has acreage, why not put another building if it would make sense?
Yeah, so this is that building. This is the back half that burned. This is actually part of that same parcel, this whole thing. It used to have 16
Nice.
units on it way back in the day. It is no longer zoned for that. So I need to go get special permission from the mayor because I also can't upzone it because it is slightly too small to be upzoned. So yeah, but yes, I would like to look at developing on this particular plot just because I know what rents I can get here and I'm seeing what's happening in north side of Columbia. I think it'd be a good investment. So because this is Main Street right here.
What
It's pretty
neighborhood
close.
of Columbia is that?
Uh, this is up in the Hyatt Park kind of area. It's near, so Lattimore Manor is a project property, but they're going to tear it down in a couple of years. So it's still kind of annoying at the moment, but they're going to tear it down and rebuild it starting in a couple years. But what I like about it is this is the hospital, and this is Bull Street District right here, which I don't know how many of you know Columbia, but they're putting in a brand new district of like super fancy. They've got like a minor league baseball stadium. There's going to be a whole new medical center for USC right here. They've renovated a couple of insane asylums into apartments, super nice apartments. There's just a lot going on in North Columbia that I like. I also like that it's not students because the students are all down here.
Right.
So on the other side of Columbia, I like this area. And then you've also got and now I'm going way off topic. I apologize, but you've got Blithwood up here. There it is up here where Scout Motors is putting a $2 million or $2 billion new motor manufacturing plant that's what this nonsense is. And their headquarters is down in Bull Street District right now. So this commute from like not that many people are gonna live in Blisswood if they have a high income. They're gonna want to live on this side of Columbia or over here on the Lake Mary, one of the two. That's my pitch about Columbia. Thank you.
And you local there, right? You live there, Columbia?
No, I live in Charlotte.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I live in Belmont. Here.
Right on.
So Mount Holly, Dallas, Gastonia. The property I'm buying is in Gastonia. Yeah. I used to live out in Kings Mountain.
Yeah, I just did a passive investment in it was on it's I think on the west side, I-26 and I-20, that location. I forget the name of the actual neighborhood. I'll look it up, but so I'm getting a little bit more familiar.
Irmo, maybe?
What
Or
was
Lexington. Lexington's really good. This
it? It was
this area is really nice down here.
there's I know like a Costco. It's getting closer to I think it's Harbison Mall, which is a
Now
little
you've lost
west
me.
going towards Lake Murray, but I forget the exact area. But I know
Okay.
a few people have obviously done well in Columbia.
Yeah, and you want to be on this, like ideally, you would be on this side of the river. There's a river runs this through here. That's what this green stripe is. You want to be on this side in like West Columbia in Lexington County because of taxes. Richland County taxes are insane. South Carolina taxes in general are insane, but Richland takes the cake for sure. That's why you'll see a lot of historic redevelopments in Columbia because it's either affordable new affordable housing that's taking advantage of those tax credits, or it's adaptive reuse, which is taking advantage of those tax credits. Because without the tax credits, making apartments just doesn't make sense in Columbia.
Will they?
And that,
I'm sorry.
is that because of the reassessment?
Yeah, it's the reassessment and the amount of the reassessment, right? So the tax rate's just really high. Like they do a 6%, they can limit it to 75% of the value when you first take over, but it's just really high. Like compared to I think it's 2.5 times to 3 times what I would pay on the same property in North Carolina for taxes.
Yeah, I was going to say, do you think you'll get reassessed on the 2 buildings that you're renovating?
I'm hoping not. So, well, the 28 Mount Holly gets reassessed every 4 years because it's North Carolina. But Columbia, I got reassessed, and then I sent in after the fire. I asked for a reassessment, and they said actually it's 21 units now, and they lowered my tax rate based on that 21 units. And so, unless there's a sale, I don't know what would trigger them to reassess it again. So my hope is that they just forget about me for a while, and because it did lower the taxes by about $8,000 a year, which on a small property like that is huge. But we'll see. I don't know if getting a certificate of occupancy, a CO, would trigger it. Like if that's something they would then go be like, okay, now these are 29 units again. But yeah, I'm hoping not. Yeah. Any other questions, or I don't know. You can tell I really planned this out. I'm happy to go in any direction you guys want.
Well, this was awesome, and we're almost at the hour point, so I don't want. I know, we all got the kids and things, and we don't want to keep
Yeah.
you out, too late. But unless anybody has any other ones, I mean, it sounds like you were obviously prepared and just had the right mindset, obviously too, and able to, look at it from a perspective of learning and getting at it.
Yeah, absolutely, Jerry. It's definitely it's all about your mindset going into it is and assessing it without the emotion, right? All right, is this a good deal if I rebuild this or not? But if you decide it is, just keep going. Like it's gonna get tough. In real estate in general, there's always tough spots, but at the end of there is light at that end of that tunnel. And honestly, the harder it is to go through, the better the returns are typically at the end of it, because most people aren't going to do the hard work.
You're a perfect example. If life give you lemons, just make it lemonade.
Thanks,
You're
Alex.
making the best out of it. I love it.
Thanks. And yeah, if anything happens to you, feel free to call me. I'll put you in touch with some people.
I hope
I
it
hope it
won't,
doesn't.
but yep.
But
But we'll definitely connect offline to talk about the podcast because I think your story is worth sharing.
thanks. Appreciate it.
Yeah, we have
John,
a small
yeah,
group. So what I'll do is I'll put us all in one email with everybody's contact information so we have it.
That's great.
Yeah. Well, Rachel, thank you. John, thank you. Alex, Ted, thank you guys for coming on. It was good getting together. Let's do this again soon.
Yeah, it's
I
very
love
cool.
it. Thank you.
Thanks, Jerry. Thanks, everybody.
Awesome.
Good night.
Good night, guys.